Thank you very much for inviting me today. It was my pleasure to accept this invite and come here, not only because of Margherita and the view that she promised to me, but because of this interdisciplinary and stimulating environment. And of course, I hope to meet your expectations today. This is what I will explain today, the creation of artificial intelligence, architecture, agents, and applications. And especially in this part, I talk about some applications that were already AI, agentic AI, but they were before this label of AI. And I hope to stimulate the discussion also with provocative questions and occasions to reflect together on these topics. Just a few words about me. And this is how AI see me. And I didn't put any picture. I only gave a prompt, but I think it is quite similar. So I'm an associate professor of retail and marketing technology at the University of Bristol Business School in the UK. And I'm the research lead for the marketing and consumption department. I'm also co-editor of the Journal of Retailing and Consumer Services and associate editor for the International Journal of Information Management. And these are my research activities. And you see, they are mainly related to the technology, but is a technology that supports consumers, because what I want to do is to help the development of new customer solutions and, of course, retail strategies and retail management. And now the emphasis is more on the role of artificial intelligence, emotional analytics, and machine learning algorithms. And I published a few papers on these topics, and you will see that I put the references to these in the slides. So what I will show is some summary of my academic results, but also the future directions on what I'm working now, which is not published yet, but I'm still interested to work on. And now AI is a quite popular topic for academics from several disciplines, but I started quite a while ago, I would say, because by education, by training, I'm an engineer in management, and my PhD is on psychology of programming and artificial intelligence. And I started my interest in marketing close to the end of my PhD. So first I focused on the technology, on AI, and even programming AI, because as you see, in early mid 2000s, we had not the tools that we have now. So forget ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, it didn't exist, or at least for us. So we actually had to write ourselves the code that we used to these. These are some examples of my early publications and artworks at the time. Because if you see, this is a screenshot of a cartoon that I did during my PhD. And all the music generated, all the music used during the cartoon was generated with AI. So at that time, we actually wrote the code and to ask them to let the machine generate the music, while now is completely different. You just use a prompt, you have programs, you have algorithms that do this by themselves. And also the interface now is quite easy to use. But at the time we did all of these. However, I can say that I started being interested in AI even before, because it started when I read I, Robot, book of Asimov, and I was about 12 years old, and also other Asimov book. But this is how I approached AI, and then it became the topic of my main research. And I even used iRobot, with some paraphrasing, as the title of a paper that I will refer to during my talk today.
So you aspire to become Dr. Susan Powell?
Honestly, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I started, because I had this passion in technologies, not only AI. It was easier to extend to the technology at the time and human-computer interaction. But then during my master in engineering management, I said that probably I didn't want to go in a company as my classmate. And they say, no, I want to do research. I want to explore phenomenon. I want to see why things happen and what I can do to make them happen. So quite ambitious, while my classmate preferred going to industry. And now there is a classmate who is actually on the Forbes list of 100 managers in Italy. So I'm also quite proud of them. But when I look at them, I say, oh, I've never wanted to have this career. So honestly, I cannot see myself anywhere else than academia. So it was a sort of a natural process, and I could say that research chose me, not me choosing research. I hope I answered to the question. So this was a brief overview of me, and I will start with the context, and then biological intelligence, and the move from biological intelligence to digital intelligence. And here you see all my other training in psychology, because I like exploring this from an idea of intelligence, what intelligence is. And before talking about AI, which is a different form of intelligence, is digital, we start from the human, which is, in other words, a biological form of intelligence. And then I move to the 3 A's, architecture, agents, and applications. So the context is that now we have a tremendous number of automated systems in different industries, and they provide a customized service. We may refer to marketing and consumer behaviors, but these are spread almost anywhere, and you will see that I will also make some reference to other sectors, including education. And all these AI development provide novel product concepts. So we can use AI to create something novel, from new bags. I use it and I publish it on bags, but it can be used to generate arts, to generate products, including a new receipt of spirits. For instance, in Bristol, there is a local distillery, and in general, UK, the gin production is very popular. And this distillery used, in collaboration with some developers, used an algorithm to actually create the new receipt of a gin. That I also tried, honestly, but since I'm not an expert of gin, as people in Bristol are, I cannot really say if it was better than human-generated gin, but there are examples on how they are using AI to generate receipt. And for instance, Brewdog, I don't know if you are familiar with this beer brand. This is a Scottish-based brewery, but now it expanded and it is almost anywhere, including the US. And they constantly produce new beers because of the demand. So every 2-3 months, they launch new beers. And the brewmaster is one of the most paid jobs in the UK, which is one who actually create a new beer receipt. And they also used AI to create one of their new beers, which is called Artificial Dog, the name of a brew dog. And also this beer was quite popular. But there are also other companies that are using them to generate, for instance, advertising. And now, unfortunately, at least in UK, we have an increasing number of students using AI to write dissertations. Before AI, they actually, especially internationals, employed external services, so human ghostwriter. In some cases, now they use AI, which is much cheaper and quite diffused. And this is something quite worrying in the UK education systems at the moment. And in the case of consumer behavior, it may change shopping experiences, for instance, from provide automated assistance, but even to choose products on behalf of consumers. And there is an increasing number of subscription services for physical goods. We are all familiar with the subscription services for digital goods, for instance, the streaming platforms from Netflix to Disney Plus. But in the UK, they use the same principle, but for products. And I don't know if you are familiar with HelloFresh. This is a subscription service that actually sends to your door a box of raw food with the receipt. They use AI to generate the receipt tailored or customized on individual preference, and it is becoming more and more effective. But there are other companies that even do for clothing, like Look Hero. It is not very popular yet, but they are doing this just, they send you on on a set delivery time box with some clothes already matched, and then you can choose to keep or to return. So this is a completely new experience, and we are moving. I'm not saying we will actually reach that point, but we are moving to a point when AI can choose on our behalf and being even better than us in choosing what we like. And of course, it changes also the human to human interaction, how we communicate with others. And now there is a huge number of youth using AI to compensate the loneliness feeling. So AI as a companion, but also AI as a medical doctor in US when the real doctor is too expensive for some parts of the population. So AI fills that gap and offer counseling and medical or health suggestions, which is another worrying element because is AI. It is based on probabilities. It's not based on real elements. And another increasing trend is the usage of AI for creating a silicon sample for consumer research. I know that a few of you use AI to simulate some behaviors. But there is a completely new branch of research to use AI to actually predict what consumers want without asking them. So now our research is still based on asking people and then predict behavior from interviews or from quantitative data. In that case, AI produces the sample, and it is called artificial silicon or synthetic sample. And we are testing the accuracy of the data produced by AI. How much these data are able to replicate real consumers or real human experiences. And what are the drivers of agentic AI? The driver is that machines can do some traditional human tasks faster, better, more accurate. For instance, one of the basic examples is finding errors on a huge essay of words or numbers. So for detecting errors or problems, because humans are able to process a limited number of information, while for AI or machine in general, these boundaries are quite unlimited or quite far if compared to the human cognition capabilities. And even if the environment where we operate is complex and the conditions can constantly change, AI is able now, with the principle of agentic AI, to adapt also to these changes, and its accuracy in terms of outcomes is increasing. So this is why now there is this tendency to go to this kind of AI. But we can use these definitions of AI, and we can distinguish agentic AI in the physical AI and digital. So it can be embedded in a robot, and it is physical, or it can be embedded on an interface or a web page, and it is digital, and having different level of anthropomorphism. And research demonstrated that the different level of anthropomorphism have different reactions in human users. And you see some examples from self-driving car to virtual assistants for autonomous customer service, and teammates to human clinicians. I mentioned that the usage of AI for having a health advices is increasing, but still medical doctors in some contexts are experiencing the usage of AI to detect disease, to find drugs and medicines, as a teammate and supportive tools. For instance, during COVID, there was the usage also of AI to accelerate the identification of vaccines, and this was why in 6 months they were able to release at least a first version of a vaccine. And you see the research on self-driving cars is still in progress, and there is a huge difference between the first examples that we saw with huge ethical issues and the more advanced ones. And the direction is to have this kind of cars to fix traffic issues. However, the difference with the traditional, more traditional form of AI is that in the case of agentic, they don't need specific set of instructions to move, like prompts. For instance, I showed you the picture that AI generated for me. That is not agentic because I asked the AI to generate a picture and I provided some written instructions to move with this task. But in the case of agentic, AI is autonomous. So there is not an instruction, a defined instruction first. We set the goals, and then AI autonomously takes the initiative. And these are based on large language models. And also in this case, the research demonstrated that their ability of reasoning is increasing. Is not yet comparable to the reasoning ability of an adult human, but it is increasing. And moreover, which is the difference with the previous version, is the ability of memorize past instruction, so that you don't need to start new instruction or new interactions from scratch. You can ask AI to build on what said previously. So they keep track of the past interaction and memorize as a baby or a growing child, and they are able to interact with other AIs in multiple AI systems, and it is particularly used in organizations and in production and manufacturing departments. And I put a question mark here because there is still is not clear the AI consciousness. Is AI conscious of what is it doing? It is related, it embraces all the actual debate about the ethical of AI. So the reasoning is increasing, but the consciousness is or is not. This is something that is still open for research. So if we are not sure that the AI is conscious of what it is doing when interacting with humans, so there is still a risk of harming other humans. How much does AI represent a real benefit for humans? There are benefits that are undoubtedly valuable for some context, but does it work in any context? What are the limits of this usage? And we are not able yet to set the limits or the boundaries of AI applications. There is a huge work also from a law perspective, from the different governments, including European Commission, to find the boundaries to this, exactly because we don't know how much AI is conscious of its actions. So drawing on these basic elements of AI, we move to the concept of intelligence. Because can we define artificial intelligence before understanding what intelligence embraces? And to do so, we start from the definition that psychologists gave to the human intelligence. And this is a particular mental ability encompassing reasoning, planning, problem solving, abstract thinking, and the capacity to adapt to the environment. And from this definition, we see that the ability of reasoning is still improving in AI. The abstract thinking is not developed as for humans. And for instance, irony, which is quite common in humans, and humans are quite able to use when they talk, is not well detected yet by AI. And what defined for biological intelligence is that they span multiple domains. So intelligence is not only the ability to make complex calculus, but we see it goes from emotional, social, musical, visual, spatial, mechanical, physical, linguistic, mathematical, scientific, and there are many psychologists defined multiple forms of intelligence, so that humans embrace not all of them, but more than one. And this is why we say that a human cannot be the best in all of these. We have artists that outperform in the visual and spatial activities. We have amazing dancers that outperforms in these, but we also have others that outperform in this kind of intelligence, but we have no people outperforming in all of them, and we don't expect that a person is outperforming in all of them. And human intelligence is based on cognitive, emotional, and psychological functions, but not all of them are still part of the AI. So when we move to digital intelligence, these are governed by algorithms, and these algorithms are based on recognition of certain pattern or a common structure. And neural networks models that try to replicate what happens into human brains with basic human neurons. And the connection between these structures helps to understand, interpret, and manage a vast amount of data. AI can learn and adapt to human behavior and optimize processes. However, as we say, there are some lacks in this form of digital intelligence that are that belongs to humans, like emotional consciousness. At the beginning, a few years ago, there were studies emphasizing emotional intelligence of AI or empathy. However, they don't really feel emotions as humans. They can replicate these emotions, so they can simulate smiling without feeling what is behind the smiling. They can recognize a certain emotion in a human based on the word said, based on the gesture, on the posture, or on the position of some muscle in the face, and adapt based on this, but they don't really feel them. And common sense. We already mentioned about moral reasoning and the common sense that humans have, because even if something it is allowed by law, it doesn't mean that a person actually does. And I usually make an example since I work in the UK. The bars in the UK university cannot serve alcohol. It must be prohibited. While in Italy, the university cafeterias serve alcohol. However, you never see Italian students going to drink alcohol before the classes or coming completely drunk to the class. Because even if it is allowed in principle, there is a common sense and they don't do it. While in the UK, they had to forbid completely selling alcohol there, because otherwise they think that if it is allowed, they can do it. And we can say that AI misses this sort of common sense. So if you didn't give the instruction to allow or limit some actions, in principle they can do, because they don't recognize that it is not, for instance, socially acceptable. And as I already anticipated, they can simulate empathy or detecting emotional states, but these capabilities are functional, not experiential. So they are able to detect, but not to really understand. They are able to adapt the behavior based on these, but it is functional. It is not, because they really experience this.
Just a comment on, based on what you're thinking here, I'm just wondering, just a matter of common sense. I know it's a huge philosophical thing, but one basic advance, I think, in generative AI is this matter of memory. And the fact that more and more generative AI tools are including memory of conversations, are extending the memory. And I'm just wondering, common sense, isn't that memory from birth? In other words, what we call common sense, isn't it the fact that we remember many of our most striking experiences from birth? And that's why we can react to new situations. In the sense that I don't think babies or children are born with common sense. I think it has to be learned. So in the sense that if generative AI, most of the time we give it a training base, we give it a bag, but if we just extend the memory of its experiences and include its memory to include other agents or other people's memory, then perhaps what we recognize as common sense, we might see the AI behaving more along those lines. This speculation, I'm not an expert in that domain, but I don't know if.
The point is that if a human gets wrong or does a mistake, we may tend to forgive. But if it is a machine, we don't. And then it depends what kind of error. And yes, as a baby, we learn a common sense. And I made this example because this is from different cultural backgrounds. But machines at the moment are not able to interact with all the other machines, so to generate a sort of collective artificial intelligence. So when I say other systems, other AI systems, these should be interconnected somehow. It's not like the human, let's say, collective intelligence as the one, I don't know, in the university, in the city, in the country. We don't need to be interconnected as the machines need to be. And there are still limited performances. They cannot reacquire all the available knowledge distributed here to really develop the common sense at the moment. Because we also have to think about the capabilities of the actual hardware before moving toward that. I'm not saying that it will not be developed in the future, but now it is not. And also there are not specific law saying about the accountability of the AI. If the AI makes an error, so who is the responsible? Is the machine, is the developer, is the user, or is the employer of the AI? This is not clear yet. While in the human society, we know that the human is the responsible for their actions. But in the case of AI, no, we don't know who is the responsible. So this contributes to all these limits now towards the development and larger usage of AI. So back to the intelligences. These are based on literature, the different kind of human intelligence types. So this is what humans can have, and then according to the individual psychologies, you can have one or another, but these are more or less some forms of intelligence characterizing humans. Some AI researchers developed some definition for the different kind of AI specializations without considering the humans one. So these have been developed starting from the machine, not going back to the biological intelligence. And here, we try to find a sort of match to see, starting from the humans, what are the main elements characterizing the digital forms of intelligence. And you see that there are some intelligence types that humans have that are not yet included in the artificial ones. For instance, the moral and ethical we just mentioned, the emotional one, but also creativity. There is a huge debate about the ability of AI to be creative. Because AI at the moment does really produce something new, or is just a reconfiguration of existing knowledge. And so here there is a huge debate on how AI can really produce something new. At the end, you saw the picture, the picture of me made by AI, but can we consider this as a new, or we already seen something similar in other sources accessed by AI and just adapted to the conditions that I provided? We have, starting from the unique attributes of human intelligence, emotion, judgment, and experience, we move to the agentic, which is characterized by this autonomy. So there is no need for the human to actually write the prompt or the instruction, just share the goal, which is goal directedness. They need to have a goal set to move. And then reasoning is increasing. It's not yet comparable to human reasoning, but it is increasing. And as a human, agentic AI is able to adapt to the context. The context and to the humans it is interacting with. So if we introduce the concept of agentic, we have to define agency. So when we talk about agentic AI, we talk about theory of agency, which is different from the idea of AI as an agent simulating humans' movement. So in the agency concept, we endow artificial intelligence with a degree of autonomy and decision-making capabilities. Because based on this level of autonomy, AI is able to take decisions. The example of self-driven cars is this. We give the goal, which is the destination, and then AI, autonomous, choose the best route to reach the goal. So, from the theory of agency view, the agentic AI changes the relationship within the principal, can be a manager, an employee, a consumers, and the agent, The agent in this case is the machine, is the AI that provides the service. While in the past, the principal and the agent were both humans. And from this perspective, AI implies the delegation from a human as decision maker to the machine as the decision maker and independent executor of the task. Of course, it is possible that there are some conflicts that emerge. For instance, AI has this goal and will reach this goal that we gave, but to reach this goal, AI can, for instance, privilege a certain company and damage another company to reach that goal, or could be a competitor or other consumers. The conflict is, for instance, in the case of a self-driving car, when the AI needs to reach the destination, it will need to take some decision autonomously. All these decisions to reach point B from point A will, let's say, favorite people inside the car. But will someone else be damaged from this? It is possible because we are not able to provide a specific instruction covering all the possible scenarios. So in this case, the question is who has the control and the issues of accountability? Who is accountable for the task? And this is something that philosophers, programmers, managers, other scientists are debating. For instance, it is possible to use AI to choose the best location to open, I don't know, a new dentist. But of course, if AI takes the decision, they may privilege the area with the highest number of persons living there, and completely ignoring other areas that will suffer without having a dentist, even if they are less inhabited if compared to the other areas. And similar is for the transportations. When you put the buses in the areas where more people live and completely exclude other areas, if a human takes this decision, they will try to balance independently on the number of inhabitants, even if having in certain areas will be less profitable if compared to other areas. But the humans are in mind to not privilege certain areas if compared to others, because they want to have an equal development and similar opportunities for every inhabitant. But the AI has not this goal. The decision could be just where to find the best location for a new train station, for a new train connection, for a new flight. For instance, another example is also Ryanair. Some places are not connected because there is this huge number of people that benefit from that connection. They make a connection there because the local government gives money to Ryanair to actually put there a route. And I know because I come from this quite peripheral place, which is Calabria, and to have Ryanair landing in Lamezia Terme Airport in the middle of Calabria region, as a local authority, every year made agreement with Ryanair and give Ryanair some money to add new routes or to maintain the existing routes, even not profitable for Ryanair, to not exclude Calabria from the rest of Italy. So you see, this is the issue in terms of agency when adopting a completely autonomous AI, because the characteristic of agentic AI is that they don't need human supervision. This is the advantage that a human is not required, but this is also the dark side, because there is the risk to leftover someone. So this is a model of collaboration, and it was developed specifically in the case of education. However, there are only few elements that distinguish these from other applications. So we have the human sphere, the AI sphere, and the shared agency sphere. So in this case, since it is from an education perspective, the goals for humans is learning. So we want to use the agentic AI principles from the agency theory to see how AI doesn't replace the student. Instead, it becomes a companion. So I made the example when AI is employed to write students' essay autonomously. If the AI writes the essay, the student doesn't learn, and we cannot assess student learning. We cannot impede AI to help students. So a way to use as a collaborative form is to let AI help students to select resources, to retrieve resources, to understand, and for instance, to improve writing, like a grammar check, not to autonomously write on behalf of the students. And based on individual students' needs, suggest some learning specific paths. Because when we have many students, it's not always possible to have this individual one-to-one path. So AI can help in this sense. Now we are testing, but many universities are testing, chatbot to provide 24/7 assistance to students to make their questions. However, that is agentic AI. How much are we able to control what AI will tell to the students? This is why we are still operating, because if they give to students a wrong indication for the essay or for the assignment or whatever, who is then the responsible? Who is the one who fails the exam? Is the student or is the AI? How can we check what AI is telling to the students? So how much we can cover all the possible students' questions and train our AI on this. So this is what we are trying to do. But honestly, at least for my experience, sometimes students can be very, very creative with their questions and their issues. That even I, with my experience, have some difficulties in answering. So how can AI with no real experience interacting with students is able to really provide the assistance that the students need? So in terms of architecture, I will not go very deep in this, but this is a summary of what is behind this or inside this black box. We have different kind of agents, different kind of softwares or coding used, because we also developed our AI just to make a comparison with this Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, to see how close we are. So potentially everyone can even develop his own with some programming element. And for instance, when I was a PhD student, I used Wolfram Mathematica to develop my basic AI. Now, you cannot use anymore this software because it reached its limits. So you should use instead Python if you want to do yours. Or some friends of mine are asking ChatGPT to do what they want to do and then to write the code for Wolfram Mathematica to develop their AI using still that software. So AI potentially, the actual tools are even able to write the code that can be used to develop your own AI. So there are many different tools to be used. So in terms of components, we have the algorithm, we have the multi-agent systems, so the connection with the other element, and then the sensor and actuators. And the sensors are those related, for instance, to the input and output modality. So even if it's just on an interface, there are still sort of hardware behind this virtual, not physical form of AI. And then the communication, because AI can write for you, can use visuals, or can talk with you. So it depends the communication that is able to provide for that specific format. So for instance, ChatGPT is mainly written, and they are all based on natural language interface. And the more development come, the more natural interaction modality between the human and the AI will be. So in terms of applications, and I'm perfectly on time, I just checked. I don't know if you are familiar with this technology. This is already available. It is for agriculture, and it helps to check some conditions that are necessary to optimize planting schedules. So based on this condition, the AI, and in this case, the AI directly controls the drones, is able to spray plants with, for instance, fertilizers. And this is already available, this in the US. And, this is another example of Watson that can be used to optimize some services, and this is also, there are many specific applications for this, but it helps to find a failure in the systems, for instance, in the telecommunication, and even find some bugs or errors in the network to immediately intervene before a failure cascade. And now this is an example. I mentioned it to you, for instance, the subscription plan, the subscription tools. But this is something you see quite recent, announced by Walmart, which is a quite large retailers in US that announced the partnership with OpenAI to help consumers. I don't know if it is then a real help for consumers, but for having AI buying for consumers on behalf of consumers. So it's not a subscription. It's something quite independent. It is not available yet, and it will be available only for those owning a loyalty card with Walmart, so that they can have all the history and historical data about consumers. And we cannot predict yet how much it will be used by consumers and by other groceries or retailers. But this is, for instance, a future trend. It is quite interesting, but also quite worrying, because it completely changed the shopping experience as a social experience and so on, but it could be very useful for elderly shoppers, for those who have some barriers to physically shop, which could be motion barriers, sight barriers, or any other form of disabilities. And these are other examples for education, because I told you we are quite worried in the UK on how, rather than limit students to use AI, how agentic AI can be a real support for them. Also, because if you tell students that you cannot use ChatGPT, you can be sure that they will keep using, and you cannot do anything. But what I found very interesting, this is an old example of agentic AI from 2018, before we defined AI as generative, agentic, and so on. So Victoria Beckham, who is the wife of David Beckham, has a luxury company, and in 2028 she was one of the first to launch a sort of chatbot. She called it Messenger Experience, so it was available only on Facebook. At the time, not many offered this service, but the interesting thing is these are screenshots, and you see Victoria started talking with me like she was the real Victoria, but of course she was not the real Victoria. But if you see how she talked with me, and you see I didn't really ask questions, so regularly she started calling me Eleonora. At least she didn't say Ele to catch my attention. And then she started talking about herself, how talking with her friends. And it was quite interesting. Of course, now it is not anymore available, because then during COVID, the brand restructured. But this was one of the first examples of an agentic AI, before agentic AI, that acted independently and simulated quite well the natural language, as she was a friend of mine. So how she approached me, and honestly, she also became quite too much, because she contacted me regularly. And at the end, she contacted me more often than my friends. So that was it. And I'm on time. Yes. Thank you very much. I'm open to questions. And also, the picture that you saw, except the ones taken from the papers, are produced by AI based on my prompts, including these.